This resolution would add just to the laundry list of items that cannot be considered in hiring, firing, and retention of employees, sexual orientation. In terms of why we would have such a resolution, number one, we're talking about a large group of people in Oklahoma. There are some estimated 360,000 gay and lesbian Oklahomans. The estimated 30 to 60,000 gay and lesbian in the Oklahoma City metro area. So it's a large number of people. Discrimination in the workplace is a real issue. In 2001, the Williams Institute at the UCLA School of Law reports that discrimination based on sexual orientation is basically equal to those of race and gender at about 4.7 per 10,000 for sexual orientation, as compared to discrimination based on gender at 5.4 and race at 6.5. And it's not just homosexual employees reporting. It's if you ask heterosexual employees, how many times have you witnessed discrimination against homosexual employees? About 12 to 30% of heterosexual workers will say, I've seen this independently. Although studies show that about 9 out of 10 Americans believe that there are protections for homosexual workers, under federal law, it's still legal, federal and state law, it's still legal to fire someone for being gay or transgender. So there is no protection. So what you've seen across the country is basically an avalanche of municipalities taking it upon themselves to add this language into their anti-discrimination personnel policies. Basically every large city in America, there's some 170 municipalities that have done it so far. There are 9 other cities in Oklahoma that have voted to offer some form of protection to LGBT Oklahomans. Perry, Noble, Chickasha, Muskogee all include sexual orientation in their harassment policy. Tulsa, which this is basically a carbon copy in terms of the resolution, voted in June of 2010 to do the same. Tulsa, McAllister, Del City, Miami, and Bonita include sexual orientation in their non-discrimination policies. Oklahoma City Public Schools includes sexual discrimination in its non-discrimination policies. I think it's not just municipalities, it's business. And I think I think what large businesses across America are also recognizing is that this is good business policy. The 2011 report of the Human Rights Campaign that found that 337 large companies now are including language in their non-discrimination policies on sexual orientation, which covers about 8.3 million full-time U.S. workers. The reason, again, is that it's good business. When the Williams Institute was very clear that lesbian and gay workers who've been able to come out with work without fear of discrimination show lower levels of anxiety, less conflict between work and personal life, greater job satisfaction, more sharing of employers' goals, higher levels of satisfaction with their co-workers, more self-esteem, and better physical health. Productivity increases, and everybody basically is happier at work. So in addition to the 170 municipalities that have done this so far, the more and more large businesses, a tremendous number of large businesses are doing so. Arguments, concerns about doing a resolution, number one would be that it's divisive, that having this would be divisive, and that maybe the personnel, that it should be done quietly by personnel department and just added. I think that direction from council is needed. This was last revised in 2005 and this language wasn't included. I think that perception is reality. I think you heard in today's Oklahoman, ex-Mayor Norick indicated that the reason the Human Rights Commission was disbanded in 1996 was because of these sexual orientation issues. It took Steve Lackmeyer of the Oklahoman about 3 minutes to put out on his Twitter account that when this first came out that the Human Rights Commission was disbanded in 1996 because of this. So there is a perception that people, none of which are here now, in decades past, that the council has been hostile to these groups. And so I think it certainly can't be quantified, but there's been a sense over the years that conventions need to be held in cities such as Tulsa, or basically all the surrounding cities around us, Albuquerque, Tulsa, Austin, et cetera, have this kind of language. And I think it has cost us in terms of conventions. And so in terms of why to have a public resolution, I think that without the public resolution, without the discussion, you don't get the benefit of healing. I think that this resolution goes a long way towards, instead of being divisive, healing some of the wounds of the past. I think that there's a concern about how, what does the term for sexual orientation mean? What's included in that? I don't think that needs to be strictly defined, just as we currently don't allow discrimination based on religion, but we don't go into a laundry list of Satanism, or we don't define certain religions. We just say religion, and likewise we're just saying sexual orientation, and that's homosexual or heterosexual. Heterosexuals wouldn't be able to be discriminated against either. There is a question of whether this would extend to health insurance benefits, and I think that it does not. That was the conclusion of Tulsa. That is, I think that the conclusion of municipalities. I don't think this has come up in the 170 municipalities that have added it to their anti-discrimination policies. I don't think it's come up in the more than 337 large companies that have added it to their anti-discrimination. Saying that you're not going to discriminate based on sexual orientation in hiring and firing does not obligate you in any way to extending same-sex health insurance benefits. The mechanism, as I understand it, would not be Title VII because it's not included in Title VII, but it would simply go up the chain of city. Jim Couch would have the final say, and then if someone wanted to file a claim, that could be done in state court, I assume, just as political affiliation is not covered under Title VII. But we've made it a city policy that we will not discriminate based on political affiliation. A final sticking point is transgender. Transgender employees almost certainly have a much higher rate of discrimination. Some would say in the order of 90%. That's more confusing legally, and I think, but an argument would be that it's already covered under existing laws prohibiting employment based on gender. That the city already mentions gender by name, and then that would include that. I do believe that we have some who also would like to speak to this.
We do. We have 3 citizens who've signed up to speak.